Hello friends, I'm Carly and this is Owning Authenticity. This video will be a look at the light and shadow sides of Pisces energy. Every single one of the 12 zodiac archetypes has a light and a dark side, aka it has attributes or characteristics of the archetype that are beautiful and things that possibly we should all be striving for. As far as developing our character and our whole soul here in this lifetime, we are all 12 of the zodiac archetypes. Every single one of the archetypes, though, also has a shadow side or parts and pieces of the archetype that create challenges or blocks or possibly some dissonance between our ego self and our whole soul. So in this video, we're going to explore both of them. Before I dive into it, if you're a regular here, thank you so much for watching. Happy to have you back. Take a second, like the video. If you're new here, feel free to subscribe to the channel. If you are enjoying this type of content, there is a lot more where this came from, exploring the shadow side, especially of these archetypes. There are playlists down in the description box for each of the individual north nodes. And I would say this video, since it combines the light and shadow of Pisces, would be especially of interest or helpful for a Pisces north node or a Virgo north node. However, I'm also recording this just as the sun is entering Pisces, and so we're beginning our 30 days of Pisces season. So at this particular moment, it's kind of relevant to everyone. So glad to have you here. Let's dive in. We're going to start by looking at, this would be in the Pisces north node realm, of Jan Spiller's book, Astrology for the Soul. I have recommended this on my channel many times. If you don't already have a copy, I highly recommend it. It's such a great evolutionary perspective as far as how to grow through the themes that are mentioned. And so the attributes to develop to really open up into our Pisces energy, number one is being non-judgmental. And the reason for that is because Pisces as an archetype is extremely accepting of what is, right? Like it's basically looking at life through the lens of the divine, through the lens of our own higher self, the part of us that is divine. Right? Like, I don't know if you subscribe to this, you definitely don't have to, but through my perspective, every single human, every single animal, every single life entity on this planet is an extension of God itself. So God is in creation. God is everything that has life, everything that has ever had life, everything that will ever have life. In my definition, God is the creation point of like, where did the energy come from in the first place? Like, energy cannot be created or destroyed. Science agrees that that's a fact, if we can even go so far as to have facts and acknowledge them. But to find that place inside of ourselves where we are able to rise back into our higher self, into a place of infinite acceptance of all that is, that is very much a divine perspective. And if you're accepting all that is, you've got no judgments about anything. And if you really think about it, who has judgments? The ego. The ego has judgments. The ego has some very specific ideas about what it wants and what it doesn't want and what's right and what's wrong. And the ego can go to town, can spend decades outlining for you all the right and wrong, all the judgments that should be judged and the judginess of all the things. And that's really more Virgo energy. That's really more our earth self, is another way of saying it. Like, that's not what our higher self is doing. Our higher self is accepting exactly what's unfolding in front of us at all times. Our higher self is knowing that every single moment of this life is a gift. Every single moment. And so how do you accept every single moment as a gift? You know that every single moment has something for you. has something for you. And really, again, it comes back to that evolutionary perspective of like, what even is life? And I personally subscribe to the belief, and again, you don't have to, that this is Earth school. We came here to learn, okay? I personally am a Virgo South Node. I love learning, can't ever get enough, won't ever be done learning. And that's good, because that's exactly what we're here to do, in my opinion. You may have your own opinions. Again, that's totally fine. I accept that. I don't judge your opinions, even when they're different from mine. That is easy to say, hard to implement, and I get better at it every day, right? I learn a little bit better how to be non-judgmental with my Virgo South Node. Oh, trust me, I got ideas of what's right and what's not. But in the grand scheme of things, I do believe on a core soul level that every single moment is a gift. And so how do you see it as a gift? You learn the lesson from it. You learn from it. You spot the pattern of what? Why do I keep attracting the same thing over and over and over again? It does seem that I may be the common denominator in this equation, right? And once we figure out like what is actually happening here, what is the lesson, what's the pattern, at that point, when we learn the lesson can kind of like shed off of us like an old layer of skin. The second Piscean attribute that is part of the beauty of this particular archetype is compassion, right? And what even is compassion? And I think it's really, another word for it is caring. Like even empathy, which might sometimes be confused for compassion. Empathy just means you can feel what the other person is feeling. It doesn't mean that you care about what they're going through. It just means you know what it is, right? So compassion is one step further than empathy. Compassion is actually caring, actually taking up space inside of you to care about something. And we can have compassion for others. We can also have compassion for ourselves. And there are people out there who would put it out there that like, you know, you can't love others until you love yourself. You can't, like, the limit of the compassion that you have for others is how much compassion you can have for yourself. And I don't really know if that's true. I do know, however, that the more I soften towards myself, the softer I become towards others. I tend to judge others the same as I judge myself. And that's one secret that I would love for everyone on the planet to know, is that anytime anybody judges you, if they're willing to leverage or levy a judgment in your direction, that just means that's how they treat themselves, you know? So like, we don't have to take that personally. And if anything, we could look at a person who's judging us and have compassion. Like somebody, my dad called me a dummy here just a few months ago. Recently, he's like, yeah, dummy. And in that moment, I mean, this was a moment of growth, and that's likely why I remember it so clearly, is because it didn't make me personally like cave in on myself like it would have in the past. It didn't make me feel like, oh, he thinks I'm not smart. The thought I had was much more compassionate than that. It was, how sad that this is how he speaks to himself. I know that for a fact, that like he's only calling me dummy because he's so used to it. It's so normal for him, and it's normal for him because that's how he's talking to himself inside of his mind, right? He is seeing a reflection on me of himself. He is calling himself dumb even in the moment when he thinks he's calling me dumb, right? So like, we see in other people what we see in ourselves. And that's where, again, I don't know if you can't love others until you love yourselves. Like, I don't know. But I do know that all we ever see in other people is what we see in ourselves. So like, that's another good sign though, on the flip side, is like, if you can see beauty in other people, if you can see wisdom in other people, if you can see skills and attributes and characteristics in other people that you really admire, you really enjoy, you really appreciate, it's all a mirror. It's all a mirror for you. So I've personally started taking those moments where, for example, I've been watching a lot of Kathy Heller content lately, and I had a moment where I was just like, God, She's so good at telling stories. She's so good at this. She's so great at asking just the right question. She's so great at hearing what they're not really saying. She's so great at, and I just like had all of these things. And underneath all of it was like this little bit of lack, this little bit of scarcity of like, she's these things and I wish I was these things. And then I remembered that the only things we can even see in other people are the things that are inside of ourselves. So I wonder, have you ever looked at someone and really admired the fuck out of them? Can you see that that's actually already inside of you? That like, instead of feeling bad that they have it and you don't, you could actually claim it in that moment that you're able to witness it in them. You can just take ownership of it and say, wow, I had no idea. I was such a good storyteller. I had no idea that I was so good at asking questions, but I could see it in her. And so that must mean it's in me, right? Can you go there? Do you go there? Have you gone there? Do you want to go there? Like, dude, I highly recommend. The next one, the next Pisces attribute is surrendering anxiety to a higher power. And really, it truly comes back to that acceptance of understanding that like, while our ego wants to have a plan, our ego wants to make judgments, our ego wants to pick a destination or pick an outcome and say this has to happen, right? Like there is a small part of ourselves that like wants to be in control of everything. Okay, be honest. Be honest, there's a part of us that always wants that. That's part of the human condition. That's part of the ego. That like, as long as we're physical, there's no getting around that. Okay. And the thing about it is when you have to have it, right? Like if I say like, I'm launching my new program here next month, that's a thing that I'm doing. And I am on the daily, maybe even on the hourly, surrendering my anxiety about that program to a higher power that says, if this program is meant to come into the collective and it's meant to touch the lives of certain people, then it will. Okay. And if I launch the program and not a single seat in the program sells, wasn't meant to be. There must be an even better place for me to spend my time. There must be an even more aligned outcome that would serve the highest good of the all to an even greater degree, right? And so like from the Pisces vantage point where we re-emerge into the divine, where we rise to the place where truly it's the fabric that we are all part of, right? Like we're all someone because we're some of the one. We're each a masterpiece because we're a piece of the master, right? When you swim to the bottom of your soul and you reconnect with your own divine life force, you find the interconnectedness of all beings. And you find this place of no anxiety because you know that the highest good of the all is always being served. And, you know, sometimes the only thing that can ever happen is that our ego can be disappointed. Our ego can have anxiety like, oh, nobody bought the program yet. There's only one person signed up. Like, oh, what if? You know, the ego is who gets disappointed. The ego is who gets embarrassed. Our higher self does not. Our higher self truly, genuinely wants the highest good of the all, the highest good of ourselves, which is part of the all, and the highest good of every other person. That's truly what it's all about. Is that this divine well-being happen and be created, be co-created with the beings that are present. And I trust, and again, it's easy to say, and we practice it a little bit more. I trust that the highest good of the all is always unfolding. And that means that there's really nothing to ever be anxious about. There's really nothing to worry about. And when we tell that to our ego wants no part of it. Our ego's like, oh, let me tell you this and this and this and this. Let me count the ways that we can keep ourselves worrying until the sun explodes. Okay, the ego will never run out of things to worry about, but our soul is never worried. Our soul is never in anxiety. And so in Pisces energy, there is the opportunity, right? Like, it doesn't always work out. The ego has a strong grip on us, and that's not by accident either. The ego's job is to protect us. But in Pisces energy, there is an opportunity to surrender the worry. And how do you do that? Like, I think there's a misconception of like, oh, I'm just not going to be anxious. Like, the anxiety is just going to go away. I'm not going to have those thoughts anymore. And in my experience, it doesn't really work like that. And for you, it may be different. Again, everybody is on their own unique path. But in my experience, surrendering anxiety to a higher power, what that actually looks like is that, again, I have the thought of like, what if nobody buys my program? So the thought comes, the anxious thought comes, the worry comes over and 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 over. We surrender it back to higher power. And how do we do that? We practice strengthening our belief that the highest good of the all is always working out. So I don't have to sell this program. That's not the job. The job is to be in alignment with my highest self and be in the right place at the right time, and to be a cooperative component to the highest good of the all being served. And sometimes that looks like surrendering what you think needs to happen, right? Like, anxiety is just clinging to one specific outcome that you think has to happen. And I promise you, no outcome in this world has to happen other than whatever's going to serve the highest good of the all. The next Pisces attribute is freeing the mind through meditation and self-reflection. And again, what even is meditation? Because I think, I definitely came through a path where, listening to lots of different people talk about it, I feel like I had some preconceived notions about what meditation is that didn't really serve me. And at this point, one of the things that I really, really love from the Kathy Heller content is she's a Pisces South Node, by the way. So in case anybody is a Pisces South Node or a Virgo South Node like me and want to head into Pisces, like, either way, I think she's absolutely fantastic. She is such a brilliant combination of being connected and in alignment and taking inspired action, which is what it's all about in the 3D. But what even is meditation? Because I think a lot of people think that it's meant to stop the mind. It's to clear your mind. It's to stop thought. And, even Abraham Hicks talks about it like that. Like, it's meant to stop thought. Like, that's the place where you can like rise above your thought. And like, the thing about it is, and this is what Kathy says, is that just like as long as you're alive, your heart will always beat, your mind will always think, period. And like, we don't want it to stop. Like, truly, we don't want it to stop. Those thoughts are kind of like an engine of creation. And really, it's a matter of tuning ourselves and tuning our energy so that we can bring different thoughts in, right? We're not trying to stop thought. We're trying to change our relationship to our thought. We're trying to potentially see beyond the loop of the consistent thoughts, the consistent stories that we tell ourselves that are like on a tape, and every day, all day long, the same tape plays. In meditation, by tuning ourselves, by taking a moment and focusing on the breath, taking a moment and focusing on your sit bones, taking a moment and closing your eyes. And one invitation that I really love, this is like where I personally started in meditation a few years ago, was I want to see what you want to show me. And I made that invitation not only to my higher self, but to my whole self, because I want to be whole. I don't want to live in this fragmented place. I don't want to live in this place where I've rejected all of these different elements of myself and I keep them locked in a dungeon somewhere. I want to see what you want to show me. And then it may be hard to look at, but like, the thing is, that stuff's always in there, whether you look at it or not. In terms of like what creates our reality, the conscious mind is about this much of what is creating our reality. And the majority of what creates our reality is our subconscious mind. So all the things that you push down and refuse to look at, that's really what's creating your reality. That's really what life is reflecting to you. And that's why a lot of times when we do affirmations, when we're practicing like journaling or making gratitude lists in the 3D, like our conscious mind is like thinking these nice thoughts, and then life still turns into a shit show. That's because in our subconscious, there's all these things that have been left unexplored. And so self-reflection and meditation and turning inward and actually being willing to look at what's in there is a very powerful process for healing. Not always easy, but it is part of the process of transcending and learning the lessons from any of the painful experiences that your life has caused you to live. Because trust me, don't trust me, actually, trust yourself. I trust that it was all a gift, every single bit of it, because I think about even like the most painful things that have ever happened to me, the most heartbreaking moments of my life. You know, I can still make myself cry telling some of those stories. Like the pain is like so fresh still in my system, and I still see it as a gift because it leads me to sit right here, right now, and be talking to you, right? Like every bit of pain that I've ever felt, every bit of being the black sheep, of feeling different, feeling isolated, feeling like I don't even want to be here. Like every bit of that is my why I keep showing up, why I want to work with people one-on-one, why I want to host groups so that I can talk to even more people at once. Like it's part of my why. The gift of that pain is the connections that it's brought into my life. And those are undeniable. It's taken me on journeys and had me meet people that I never would have met before. If I had had a bright, sunny, happy, never been hurt a day in my life, I'd be doing something very different than what I'm sitting here doing today. But like this is delicious. And how did I get here? Right? Like I was hurt, and then I healed, and now I'm here. And am I all the way healed? Is that something that even really exists? I personally don't think so. I think we heal this little bit, and then we're able to walk in a new way on this earth, and then we heal a little bit more, and then we're able to walk in a new way on this earth, and then we heal a little bit more, and then we're able to walk in a new way on this earth. And it really is never ending. This is Earth School. There's always more. There's always more to learn, always more that we can learn. The next one is focusing on this spiritual pathway. And really that's what we've been talking about as far as like stepping outside of the 3D reality of like life is you're born, you work, you pay bills, and then you die. Like, is that really what's going on? Maybe you think it is. I highly doubt it. If you're watching this video, especially if you're still watching this video, chances are you're focused on the spiritual pathway. You're focused on, what is my soul here to learn? What lesson did I come to learn? What pain did I come to heal in myself and in others? How did I come here to help mass consciousness evolve? Right? Like, what is it for? What is this bigger picture, highest good of the all? And how do I participate in it? And that is so much bigger than us in our own day-to-day life experience. The next one is trusting in positive outcomes. And if you think about it, like, if you can get to this place, or I should say, like, when you get to this place of knowing in your core that the highest good of the all is always unfolding, it's hard to see anything as a negative outcome. Like, I think about, like I said, like I'm launching a new program in March 2024, and what if nobody buys it? And like, that's my anxiety that I'm like, surrendering back to the higher power. But like, I think about when I first started hosting groups, it was on Meetup. They were totally free. I would put out a topic and like, hey, we're going to talk about this. Anybody's welcome. Host a Zoom. And the very first one that I put on the calendar, it had about 8 people, I want to say. It was like maybe 6, 7, 8 people registered for the event. And I remember thinking like, oh my God, like people signed up. Like it was free, but like still, like people signed up. They want to be there. They want to come and hang out with me. They want to talk. And I opened the Zoom and I'm sitting there and like the start time comes and the start time passes and passes and passes and no one comes. No one shows up. And is that a negative outcome? That's really the question, trusting in positive outcomes. Was that a negative outcome or a positive outcome? And that is truly where it's all depending on how you look at it. Because that showed me that, I'm losing my train of thought because it showed me a lot of things, actually. But I would say the main one was it showed me I was disappointed. I was disappointed that they didn't come, and is being disappointed a negative outcome or is that a positive outcome? Again, it depends on how you look at it, because how I looked at it was, I really want to do this. I really want to do this. I really want them to come, and I want to be the host, and I want to, I was so nervous. Like, in addition to being disappointed, it also showed me I was relieved. I was relieved that nobody came, and that was a wild feeling. And again, is that a positive outcome or a negative outcome? And I think we're far enough into the conversation to be like, at this point in the 3D, in the ego self, positive and negative exists. But in the 5D, in the non-physical, in our soul, positive and negative isn't even a thing. It's not a thing. It's the highest good of the all being served every single time. Every single time. So the relief I felt was just how nervous I was. Right? Just how sick I felt about oh my God, I don't know how to host a group like this. I don't know how to welcome them. I don't know how to pull other people into the conversation. I don't even really know what I want to say. I don't know how to end it. I was so relieved that nobody came. But more than relief, I was disappointed. And the combination of those two feelings of, on one hand, I'm glad nobody showed up, and then on the other hand, I'm sad that nobody showed up. And I put another one on the calendar. If I had only been relieved, maybe I never would have scheduled another one, and that just would have been it. The meetup experiment of me hosting groups would have been over. But it wasn't, because I was disappointed. So I wanted to try again. I wanted to get people there. So what I did was put a conversation on the calendar for a different topic, and people showed up. And then I put another conversation and people showed up. And then I put another conversation and people showed up. And I've never had another one where nobody showed up. Only that very first one. And nobody showing up to my very first one, was that a positive outcome or a negative outcome? You tell me down in the comments, because for me, how I look at it today was, through that meetup account, I ended up hosting about 250 conversations over the course of a couple years. I was doing multiple a week. I want to be with you. I want to host these groups. I want to meet people. I want to hear what they have to say. And eventually it was that, meeting with people and being with them on Zoom, that gave me the confidence to start a podcast, gave me the confidence to start making videos. That was such a huge step of getting ready to be ready, to be ready, to be ready. And it all started with my very first conversation. Nobody showed up. Was that positive or negative? Again, I don't think it even exists, that there is such a thing as a negative outcome. I think every single outcome is positive, and it's just a matter of being able to find what was positive about it. The next one is acknowledging connection with the universe. And this very much goes back to what I was saying around, I've really worked to see the divine in everything, in myself and in my cat and in my neighbor and in the person who hates my guts. And in the person who fired me, I try to see the divine in everyone and to see the positive outcomes in everyone, because there are such a thing as you think that you've been rejected, but really what you've been is deflected. You've been redirected around something that was not for your highest good. And if it's not for your highest good, it's not for the highest good of the all. For us to serve the highest good of the all, we absolutely have to be in alignment with the highest good of ourselves, because check it out, we're one of the all. So if we're not being served, the all isn't being served. So acknowledging connection with the universe and trusting that there is this benevolent force that loves you and that actually will protect you by other people not liking you, other people firing you, other people rejecting you, other people hating you. These are all positive outcomes. And again, I wonder, can you go there? Do you go there? Do you want to go there? It feels so much better than clinging with every ounce of force you got onto what you think has to happen, right? Your partner saying, I don't want to marry you. That's protection. That's divine protection. Someone you getting sick and having to cancel work or whatever, that's divine protection. Every single bit of anything that happens on the path is you being protected, right? And sometimes that's done through situations pulling you into new places. For example, I got my first invitation to go on somebody else's podcast. You guys, I'm so freaking excited, and I feel like this is the floodgates, right? All the invitations to appear on all the podcasts, they're on their way. But that is one where the universe is putting me in over here to say you need to go over here. And you need to talk on this podcast because these people that are listening to this podcast, they need to hear what you have to say, right? And sometimes it's you get an invitation and then the invitation gets canceled, and that is divine protection, because actually, yesterday I was planning to go to yoga and then I ended up making a video instead, and it's that's divine protection. I wasn't supposed to be at yoga. I was supposed to make the video. Again, you don't have to look at it like this, but personally, the more I'm able to see that it's all working for me, it's all serving my highest good, it truly does feel like the anxiety just melts off layer by layer by layer. And the last one on the Pisces list of attributes to develop is welcoming change. And what does that mean? It means the ego's not clinging to the outcome that it thinks it needs. Right? I welcome whatever the highest good is into my life. For example, here's another one that's happening next week that here's some anxiety for you that I'm currently surrendering back to the higher power. I was invited to speak to the See, I'm flubbing my words because again, I get so nervous even thinking that I'm going to go do this, but I'm going to go do it because God's putting me in. The higher power is you need to be over here, and these people need to hear what you're going to say. So I got invited to go speak to the Kansas legislature, and they want to hear my story about why I left Kansas and why I came back. And that's all I got to do. I got 20 minutes in front of a group of legislators to tell them why I left and why I came back. And the only reason that I have that invitation is because I'm going to trace it backwards several steps here to show you just how capricious this universe really is at putting us in the perfect place at the perfect time. The only reason I got that invitation was because they originally reached out to this other foundation for them to speak, and the foundation has its board meeting at that exact time. Same start time, same day, can't be there, not available. And they were sorry, we're not available. And the person came back to them and was well, do you have any recommendations? Because we normally want 3 speakers. We've only got 1. We're having kind of a hard time finding people to speak on this issue. So do you know of anyone? And the foundation was you know who you should ask? Carly. and told them that like blah, 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 like she's so great. And I had that foundation. The two co-directors, I had them on my other podcast, my Grocery Adventure podcast. They were like my second guest. They were episodes 4 and 5 on my new podcast that I just started last year. And I knew Marcy, one of the co-directors, from my grocery adventure. I met her from starting my grocery store when I moved back to Kansas. I did not know her before that. And actually, it was even a few years into me doing my grocery store. It was through COVID. When COVID hit at the beginning of 2020, I was managing the grocery store that I owned and doing Facebook Lives every day to keep our customers and our community apprised of what I knew, the latest information that I have about the shortages and when new products are coming in. And, we were out of milk and they were really short, so we didn't get much. And here's the limit that we have on ground beef and like all the things that they needed to know. And she discovered me through those live streams. And we have talked a handful of times over the last few years, and I've always really loved her energy. So when I started my new podcast, I was like, I need to have Marcy on the podcast. And so she agreed. She was my 4th and 5th guest, on the 4th and 5th episode. And that was like 6 months ago. Haven't talked to her since then. And then here's somebody reaching out to her, asking her for her expertise. She's unavailable to give it, and she refers them to me. That's how I ended up with this invitation to go speak in front of the Kansas legislature. So that's happening here in just a couple days, and I am actively working on surrendering my anxiety about that to a higher power. I don't plan to prepare a single thing to say. I don't plan to rehearse. I don't plan to practice. I plan to go in there and be my real self, because that's what my higher power is telling me, is that there's a reason that they couldn't find speakers, because we needed a huge space for you, right? Normally, it's like you get maybe 20 minutes, and that has to include your Q&A time, because they have 3 speakers and it's an hour-long lunch session. And this time there's only 2 speakers. And so that means they're going to have even more time with me. And that's what they really need, is they need time with me. And it doesn't even matter what I say. It matters that I'm showing up. It matters the energy that I bring into that room, the what they can feel coming off of me. It doesn't even matter what I say. So the change that I'm welcoming is that I've never spoken to a government body before. And here in a couple days, I will no longer be able to say that, right? And of course, I have egoic ideas and attachments of like how awesome I would love to do at that presentation. I'd love to kill that presentation. But like all of that leads me down a path of like getting really hyper anxious over what it is that I'm supposed to say, what I should say, what I shouldn't say, how real should I be? And like all of these questions start coming up, and like decisions start coming up. And truly, my Pisces North Node will be in all its glory that day, because I'm going to go in there with my flow and I'm going to tell them some stories. And I'm going to be honest the same way that I've practiced being honest in 600 some videos on this channel, and just give them my real energy. Because I had reasons for leaving, and I'm going to tell them what they were. And I had reasons for coming back, and I'm going to tell them what they were. And they're going to do with that information whatever they want. Like it's not up to me. I was watching a movie last night called 28 Days. If you've ever seen it, it has Sandra Bullock in it. And it's where she goes to rehab. And there's a scene towards the end where she's like friends with this baseball player who's also in rehab. And he's out in the woods like practicing throwing his pitches or whatever. And she tries and she can't even hit the mattress that he has on the tree to like, let alone the strike zone that's drawn on the mattress. And he tells her, he's like, what were you thinking about? And she's like, hitting the mattress. Hitting the strike thingy down there. And he's like, I mean, I know this is hard to believe, but that's all wrong. And she's like, what? And he's like, yeah, because what's down there, like once you let go of the ball, you're done. You can't control what happens at that end. That's somebody else's job. When you are in your process of making your throw, there are a few things you can focus on: your balance, your posture, your form. That's about it. And all we have control over is what is going on inside of ourselves and what we offer out into the world. And I want to walk in there with such peace and love that truly it does not matter what I say, because I'm there to spend quality time with people who are people. Right? Like, I get so nervous. You saw, like, I get so nervous thinking like, oh, these are government officials, and like these are legislators and like senators and stuff. And like, yes, they are. They're also human beings. Okay? And going with the flow helps us, welcoming change helps us to be responsive in the moment and be present in the moment, to make the most of the moment, to do what? To serve the highest good of the all. Any plan that we ever make is always to gratify our own ego. Okay? Every single time we plan it out and we decide, like, here's the outcome I want, and here's the steps I'm going to take, and I want to kill it, and I want to make these points because these are such powerful points. So I'm going to write this speech, and I'm going to think really hard about what's the right story to go here. And then I'm going to practice and practice and practice and practice and practice and practice. And every bit of that is ego gratification. Every bit of that is trying to tell yourself that, like, your performance is for you. Your performance is so that somebody will walk up to you afterwards and say, you did a good job. This is selfish. This is ego. This is like the most selfish thing we can do, is make a plan and try to control the outcome. Because I love it. Like, God's plan is so much better than yours. Like, have you ever been surprised and delighted by how good of an outcome you get? Like, has it ever worked out even better than you thought it would? This happens to me all the time, and it drops into your lap, right place, right time, right place, right time. And the more we align with our own higher self, with our own non-judgmental, compassionate, surrendered to a higher power self, the more able the higher power is to plug us in at the right place at the right time, right place at the right time, to say the right thing, to have the right idea occur to you and then come right out your mouth. Like, every single bit of this video, what we've done so far, like, literally, I had these bullet points. Let me see if I can get them on screen. Yes. Those are the bullet points. If you want to pause the video and take a screenshot, you're more than welcome. That's the attributes to develop in the Pisces North Node chapter, Jan Spiller's book, Astrology for the Soul. This was my outline for this video. And then I spent 42 minutes so far talking about whatever idea popped into my mind. Whatever idea popped into my mind, that's what came out my mouth. Trusting that the highest good of the all is going to be served, that the people who find this video are going to hear exactly what they need to hear from what I've offered, and that the amount of effort, right? Like, I spent no effort preparing for this video. I found this page and I didn't even read the whole list before I started recording. I was like, read the first couple. I'm like, oh, those are good. Cool. Okay, record. Trusting in positive outcomes, trusting that the highest good of the all is actually being served no matter what happens, right? Like, every single video I've ever made, I think afterwards, I'm like, I should have said that. I should have said that story. That story would have been so much better. Dang it. And then I start, like, getting anxious and beating up on myself. Like, he didn't do as good as you could have done, blah, 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 blah. And then I surrender it back to the higher power, because I recognize that that video and me saying all the things wasn't for me. It was for the highest good of the all. And how do I make sure that I'm serving the highest good of the all? I serve my own highest good in this moment. And how do I do that? I line up with my fun. And you know what's fun? Getting on here and just being free to self-express. Getting on here and just telling some stories and being non-judgmental about myself. When I flub my words, or I get distracted, or I'm mid-sentence and I have a whole new rush of ideas come through, like, just go with it. Just go with it and trust that something beautiful, something breathtaking is being born from it. Something so much better than anything your ego could ever plan. So with that, we are going to switch gears and we're going to talk about the Pisces shadow, because no zodiac archetype is without its shadow. Every single one of them has the light and the dark, Pisces being no exception. All right, so we'll dive in here to the Virgo North Node chapter, where we will look at the tendencies to leave behind of a Virgo North Node, which is essentially giving us a look at the Pisces shadow, the ways in which Pisces energy can get in its own way. I mentioned in the beginning that we're all 12 of the zodiac archetypes. There's a reason that none of us are just one of them, because one zodiac archetype isn't capable of doing much of anything on this planet. It really does take a combination of all of them. They all play their part, and even Pisces energy can be too much of a good thing, just like any of the rest of them. And I will also say that there is already a video on this topic of loving the Pisces shadow that goes into extreme depth on seeing a loving, accepting perspective on some of these attributes. And so I am going to skip those ones. Like, I'm looking at this list here, and the top ones I have already covered in that other video. So I'll link that in the description box specifically, but you can also click into the Virgo North Node playlist and find all kinds of videos that are specifically talking about developing Virgo and trying to integrate that Pisces shadow. But the first one is oversensitivity. And, you know, I am a person who got told a lot when I was growing up that I was too sensitive. And I think a lot of people around my channel can probably relate to that. Like HSPs, highly sensitive people. Yeah, I think there's a lot of people who can relate to being told that they're too sensitive. And what I want to do here is take a second and say that what we're about to talk about is not that. Okay, like, I'm going to tell you from a very practical standpoint why this piece is in the shadow, why this gets in the way of what we're trying to do. And it basically has to do with, you know, when you came to Earth School, when you came to the 3D, you're born into your human body, you had a mission. You had something that you meant to do while you were here. And in that way, it's very important that you do what you came here to do. And so the oversensitive part is when our emotions make it hard or impossible to do what we came here to do, right? This is not about pleasing anyone. This is not about being accepted by anyone. This is a matter of like us getting in our own way, shooting ourselves in our own foot with what we're doing. And so much of our oversensitivity, like that Pisces archetype, is so open and accepting of everything that is, just like a sponge, absorbing like what's going on around them. And that leads to holding a lot of emotional energy, some of it that's not even yours, right? So the oversensitivity part is really about what we make it mean when we don't feel good, and what that does to the action that we're able to take then moving forward. And notice that it's not just sensitivity that we're trying to leave behind, right? Like, nobody says that you're not supposed to be sensitive. Like, that probably is impossible anyway. Specifically, the author, Jan Spiller, is saying over sensitivity. And so what does that really mean? And again, I think it goes back to, what do you make it mean when you feel bad? What does that mean to you? What does it mean about the options that you have available to you, the action that you have available to you? And it's not about cutting out bad feelings so that you never feel bad ever again. It's really about getting curious with those feelings and what does this mean? Like, I think back to my experience I mentioned earlier, where the very first group conversation I ever hosted, people RSVP'd, but nobody showed up. And there was definitely a part of me that was hurt by that experience of like, oh, nobody came, you know? But at the same time, like, What does that mean? Does it mean nobody's ever going to come? Or does it mean that nobody came today and I could get back on that horse if I really wanted to? If I want to make it happen, then I'll just try again. And that's another one. I'm going to do these out of order, I guess, but all good. The next one is giving up, right? And why do we give up? We give up because we believe we can't make it happen. And I think a lot of those beliefs, like where we lack belief in ourselves and we believe that it's impossible for us to do it or us to make it happen, us to have what we want, we give up because it's very related to the oversensitivity, to what we're making it mean when other people don't get it. You know, I tried to tell my family and they're not supportive, and so I just like threw in the towel. And it's like, I know it hurts when one individual or a group of individuals, especially individuals that are close to you, like your family, I know that it hurts when they don't get it. I know that because my family doesn't get it, right? But choosing to give up, that's on you. That's on me. If I had stopped after the first Zoom when nobody came, that's on me. That's not because they didn't show up and now it's their fault that I can't do a group. No, it's my fault because I chose to not do another one, right? Like I chose to not try again. And that's not what happened. I did try again. People came. I made friends. I gained confidence. Like when we choose to give up, it is almost always because we don't really believe that we can do it. We don't really believe that that possibility is available to us. And that is where I do want to talk a little bit about this next one of self-doubt. And we could just go ahead and roll in here. Self-doubt and feelings of inadequacy. Those two very much go hand in hand. And are precursors to giving up as far as like, I don't think I can do it. I don't think I should do it. Should I really be doing this? No one seems to want it from me. Who am I to be offering this, right? Like these are what that self-doubt, feelings of inadequacy, that's what it sounds like. And it'll chip away at you until you give up, if you let it. Or you recognize that, you know, where does confidence really come from? You know, think about that for a second. Where do you think confidence comes from? Think back to something that, or think like in your right now moment, something that you are confident about. And how did you get that way? Were you born confident in that area? Maybe you were, but I can tell you for me, confidence is built. It's something that you build brick by brick by brick. And it's something that if you want to be confident, you're probably going to need to practice, right? Like every single beginner, every single novice is brand new at something. They're likely not very good at it yet. And if you're not very good at something, it's really hard to be confident in your ability to be good at it, right? Because the factual reality is I'm not very good at that. But the question is it worth it to you to practice it, to get good at it? And sometimes the answer is no. I don't care. I don't care if I'm good at that thing. So I'm just going to give up because it doesn't even matter to me. And that's fine. That's probably for the best. If it doesn't matter to you, then what are you playing with it for anyway? But if it matters to you to do the thing, you know, like one thing that comes to mind is like, in my coaching, I sit with a lot of healers, a lot of helpers, a lot of catalysts who they have a mission of like, I know I'm here to help people, right? And then we all have the self-doubt, the feelings of inadequacy, I haven't built my confidence in this area yet. That's all that means. Self-doubt just means you haven't built the confidence yet. Feeling inadequate means you haven't built the adequacy, the confidence yet, right? And so confidence for me comes from successful completion of the task, right? Like I did it and it went well. It had a good outcome, you know, whatever that is based on the activity that you're doing. And I feel this much more confident now. And it could be as simple as, well, the example that's coming to mind is before a few weeks ago, I had never walked into a business and asked them, hey, do you want to sell this book that I made? And one day I was really feeling myself. I was feeling real courageous. And I had heard Kathy Heller say on one of her videos that like it only takes 20 seconds of courage to change your life. And I was like, I could do that. I could totally like spend 10, 20 seconds of being courageous and just see what happens, you know? And so I walked into the shop and I told the owner, I'm like, I have a self-care journal that's about 30% journal and about 70% guide on how to build your customized self-care routine. Is that something you'd be interested in selling in here? You know, how long do you think it took me to say that? 10 seconds? Maybe 15 seconds. I don't know. I'd have to go back and listen to it. But just saying that one little bit. And she said, do you have a copy of it? I'd love to see it. And I'm like, I'll bring you a copy back later today. And so I did. I went back later that day, and with another 5 seconds of courage, I walked back into the shop with my copy in hand and asked for the owner. She walks up to me and I said, hey, so this is my self-care book. You know, how long did it take me to say that? 1.5 seconds, right? And she flips through it and she says, what did you say the wholesale price was? And so that would be how much she pays me for the book, and then she's going to retail it. Her price would be the retail price, what the customer is going to pay her for it. So she asked me, what did you say the wholesale price was? And I told her, and she's like, yeah, okay. So like 6 copies to start with? Can we do 6 copies? And I'm like, yes, we can do 6 copies. So with all of about 15 seconds worth of courage, I sold 6 books. And what's really fascinating is that her commitment to like try out my book in her store and like sell it and see what happens. And that was right there. That was already right there. Did I make her say yes? Did you hear me convince her in any of it? Did you hear me sell the book in any of it other than putting it in her hands? No, I asked her if she wanted to, and she said yes. And so that is so accessible. And so why didn't I do it sooner? And that's a real question, self-doubt and feelings of inadequacy, fear of, what if she says no? What if she says no? And that's where, again, it goes back to that oversensitivity piece and like, okay, what if she did say no? What would that mean? What if you did ask her and she didn't say yes? What if you host a Zoom and nobody comes? What does it mean? What does it actually mean? Does it mean that your book is bad? Does it mean that you aren't meant to host groups? Does it mean like anything other than that wasn't the right fit? Going full circle with the light side of Pisces, expecting positive outcomes and serving the highest good of the all. Trust me, like if your book, like let's just say like that analogy of like your services, your art, whatever you made, whatever it is that you want to offer to the world, you go and offer it to somebody and they say no. What does that mean? That is divine protection. That means that your piece, your work being in that location would have brought more harm than help to you and to the all, right? So at this point, self-doubt and feelings of inadequacy, it's like truly what that is a sign of is seeking external validation, right? And then when the external validation is withheld, making it mean that you're not good. And truly, this is where my personal Virgo South Node really comes in handy, because I believe wholeheartedly in practice, that proficiency is built through practice, that if you want to be good at something, you better practice. Somebody told me the other day as I was offering that story to them, and they're a healer and wanting to put themselves out there and possibly approach different businesses to partner with them and have a referral program or whatever it is. And I told them the spiel of, is this something you'd be interested in? And the extended version, like I told you before. And she's like, you're just so good with your words. I'm not good with my words. And the question is, how much have you practiced? Like you can see my practice. You can see the 600 plus videos on my YouTube channel. You can see the 100 plus episodes on my podcast. You probably can't see the fact that I started entering public speaking contests when I was 9 years old. Okay, that was the first time I wrote a speech and gave it in front of a judge panel and an audience, was at 9 years old, and I never stopped. And even the job I had, even though I wasn't doing public speaking, I did client meetings all the time, where you stand up in front of a client, either a current client, and present about their account, or a prospective client and try to tell them about our software and see if they'll want to buy it, all the time. So like at this point, I'm coming up on 30 years of practice. Okay, so if you say, I'm not good at it, my question to you is, how much have you practiced? How much confidence have you built on purpose? Like if you want to get good at something, if you want to overcome self-doubt, be willing to practice it. And if it's not valuable enough to you to practice it, then you should probably move on to something else anyway. The next one is withdrawal. And again, that goes hand in hand with the giving up of like, we don't think we're personally capable. And so overall, I would say the shadow of Pisces, like it's so ethereal, it's so non-physical. It's like Pisces energy itself is so fluid and godlike that like it naturally lacks the earth realm proficiency, the ability to feel confident about what you can do with your two hands, your voice, your body, your time. Like in the 3D realm, those are your tools, right? Like your body, your time, your voice, your vision, your perspective, like that's what you have, your ability to learn, your ability to practice. Those are the tools that you have in your toolbox. And when we withdraw, to me, it's a symptom of you don't believe in your tools. When you give up, you don't believe in your tools. And again, it's like, that's okay, because we've all been there at some point. We've all had a lack of confidence at some point. And recognizing, I personally find it very liberating that like confidence can be built. If you want to be confident, then build some confidence. Like it's that simple. Open and shut case. And if you would like to know how, then, I offer spaces where I work with people one-on-one. I work with people in groups. If you're interested in that, there are links in the description. You can also email me at owningauthenticity@gmail.com. You can also check out lots of my other content on this channel. I want to help people feel confident in what it is that they have to offer to this world, because the most exhilarating ride that you will ever take in this 3D Earth school is giving away your gifts. Right? And if we want to help, if we want to heal, if we want to serve, hanging around in the shadows, doubting ourselves, feeling inadequate, withdrawing into the darkness where no one can see us, no one can hear us, who's benefited by that? Really think about that. Who benefits? Who wins in that scenario? Who's healed? Who's served? There's only one entity that's served when you do that, and it's your ego. It's your own personal ego. And so the shadow of Pisces energy, like even Pisces, where we reemerge into the interconnectedness of the all, we feel our oneness with the divine. Like even in Pisces energy, we cannot escape the ego. Okay, because that's all self-doubt is. That's all feeling inadequate is. That's the ego talking to you, telling you, who do you think you are? And so if you want to be confident, build some confidence. And the last one that I'll go into is vagueness. And she has in parentheses, not wanting to commit to like any one thing, like just wanting to stay completely open-ended. And that leads to inaction. And again, it's like, if it's not important enough to commit to, you should probably find something else anyway. You should find like what is so on fire for you that you can't not commit to it, right? Because it feels so good to be in that space, to flow like that, to give this gift. Feels so good. I don't even care if I'm inadequate. I just want a chance. I just want a shot at getting to be in this space. And if, again, I say this like as far as when we go into these modes of inaction, who is served? Who is served by that? by us holing up in our house and putting the covers over our head and refusing to be seen and refusing to be heard and refusing to even try. Who wins? The ego, our little self, our human self. And personally, there's a lot of things that I'm afraid of. Okay, like I'm not without fear. I'm a human and my ego has fears. Okay, that's not a news flash to anybody. We're all in that boat. And the thing that I'm most afraid of is regret. Regretting that I should have put myself out there more. I should have at least tried. I had the potential and I was too scared to even try to develop it. Unfulfilled potential. The regret of unfulfilled potential. That is my personal greatest fear. And I draw on that often to put myself outside my comfort zone, to make myself uncomfortable on purpose, because that's where every ounce of growth happens. That's where every ounce of confidence you will ever have is built. You have to get uncomfortable if you want to grow bigger, if you want to expand, if you want to grow confidence. We have to go into the unknown territory of, I don't know if I can do this, but I'm going to try. And so my prayer for every single person this Pisces season is to line up with something that you care so much about that you would be willing to be uncomfortable in order to pursue it. And what is that? What is that for you? If you think of nothing else for the next 30 days, let it be that. What matters to you so much that you're willing to be bad at it? I'm willing to suck at this because at least then I'm trying. At least then I'm getting a little bit better and a little bit better and a little bit better and a little bit better. 30 years worth of practice, how good do you think you could be? How much are you willing to try? Trying is all that is ever necessary in order to become confident, in order to become proficient, in order to become an expert, in order to become a master. Every bit of that started with, I will try. So, I will leave you right there. The last thing I will mention is that I did talk a little bit about the new program that I am launching in March of 2024. I am so excited about this 12-week program. I have already built it, and I think genuinely that was like what was my juice and my reward of even having this idea. Like I said before, it truly doesn't matter if a single person buys the program because I got to go through the journey of creating it, and there was a lot of juice and confidence building in there for me. So that was really cool. And as part of that launch, even if you're not looking to invest in a container at this time, there is a free 5-day retreat that you should absolutely check out. It's totally free. The whole cost of admission is just your time. And you don't have to come to all 5 days. I've had people register for all 5 days, and you are more than welcome to come and soak that up, plug into that energy that entire time. Or register for whatever days you're free. So the details for all of that are down in the description. And if the dates of the free retreat have passed, it's happening March 16th through the 20th, 2024. Even if those dates have passed, you can still click on that link and it'll take you to a place where you can get the replays of what happened. So you can watch the videos. Won't be quite as powerful as being there live, but the replays will be available by registering at the link. So if you have any questions about any of this, I would love to hear from you down in the comments or at owningauthenticity@gmail.com. Thank you so much for tuning in here. I absolutely love connecting with you in this space, in this community. This Owning Authenticity space is truly one of the creations that I am most proud of so far in my life. And it is literally an honor that you are here. It is my pleasure to be here with you. Until next time, I do hope that you will take such good care of the beautiful extension of God that you are, and so will I.